Can I start strength training at home, or do I need to use a gym? If I can do it at home, what equipment am I going to need? These are often questions I'm asked when people are interested in getting started with strength training, or they're interested in joining my online course, Stronger for Life. And it's the biggest objection I hear is about the dislike of the gym. Often this dislike is down to feeling daunted, overwhelmed, and the fear of judgment, etc. And people often just let that become such a barrier that they never get started. And a lot of people are seeking out an option to then do at home, but not sure actually for strength training whether that is an option at all. And I wanted to use this episode just to touch on that a little bit and talk about why actually the doing things at home is very much a possibility, particularly in the early stages. And share with you a couple of stories of some of the members of my course Stronger for Life, and they had similar objections and the different directions they chose to go with that, and but also the benefits they've seen from it. So I thought I'd start by talking about what the pros and cons are of working out at home versus working out at the gym. So if we start with home, if you're starting from home, the big plus side that people tend to see, the big attraction of it, is the privacy and the comfort. You haven't got to worry about anyone's judgment or feel intimidated by other people in there who just seem to know what they're doing when you're very new and you feel lost with it all. So you've got the freedom to explore without worrying about that. And that's a big attraction for a lot of people. There's the convenience of it. You haven't got to travel. You haven't got to battle with car parks, the unsavory changing rooms that are often the case are not always the nicest. And it's just easier. You just step into the room you're going to do it in, quickly go and get changed. You can fit it into short periods of time in between other things you've got going on in your life, and it becomes a lot easier to fit into a schedule. Cost effective. It's very cost effective to start with because a gym comes with monthly fees in most cases, whereas at home you haven't got to worry about that. Now, we'll come on to it in a second. There might be some equipment you might have to purchase, but again, in the early stages, this is very inexpensive, and it might only be the cost of 1 or 2 months membership, but you can then use that for a lot longer, and then you've still got it afterwards if you need it. And then also you control the environment, so you don't have to worry or tolerate someone else's music that isn't your taste. You can choose a music, or you can put a podcast on, or an audiobook. You can control the temperature, so if you want to open the window because it's too hot, or if you want to turn the heating on because it's too cold, you can do that without having to worry about what other people's preferences are. You don't have to worry about if someone's using the bit of equipment you want and having to wait, or then have to suddenly think on the spot and choose something else to do. You're the only one in there. You know what equipment's there. You will have planned around it, so you can just work at the pace that you want to work at. So why would anyone want to work out at a gym? Well, as you progress, the gym is going to provide you a lot more variation of equipment and give you more options of the different directions you can progress in. Whereas if you're at home and you've only got a couple of bits of equipment, it really limits what your options are for progression, and can sometimes start to feel a bit stale. And if you then lose interest in what you're doing, then that can then mean your motivation is likely to wane and you just give up with the process. Whereas in the gym, it can be a bit more interesting because every few weeks you can start to change the program if you want to. And you've got fixed machines, you've got kettlebells, you've got Olympic bars, you've got dumbbells, and then you can also tie in all the cardio machines if you want to do a bit of that as well. So there's so many more things you can do in the gym, which is why it's a big appeal for a lot of people. You also have other members in there. Now, initially people fear some of the other people in the gym when they don't know what they're doing. They worry about the judgment or the intimidation. But actually quite quickly you realize that there isn't much of that at all going on. Yes, there's the odd person, but most people in there are there trying to support everybody else and encourage everybody else. And you've got a shared interest. You're in the gym because for various different reasons, but generally it's because you want to be fitter, healthier, and a more sort of positive future. And it's a bit like when I go out on a run. If I pass a runner in a different direction, there's always a little nod of encouragement or a little wave. And it's kind of the same in the gym. And particularly if you start going in at the same time each week on the same day, you often start to recognize people that are doing in that same schedule. And you can often strike up a conversation with them and start to see what they're doing and how they're progressing. And yeah, it becomes a supportive community in a gym, particularly if you want it to be and you put a bit of effort into actually talking to others. Um, then you've got the staff. So the staff can be really valuable for that support and that network as well, but also for if you're starting a new exercise and you're not 100% sure on the technique and you just want to get someone to check you, then the staff are often more than happy to do that. If you are trying something with a much heavier weight for the first time and you're not sure if you're definitely going to manage it or not, particularly say in the chest press, and you're worried about getting stuck at the bottom, then there's people around, whether it's staff or those other members that you've started to talk to, that you can ask them to spot you, which is where they stand behind, and if you start to struggle, they can help you lift that weight back up again. So should you start at home or should you start in the gym from the outset? What's my opinion on that? So what I would suggest, for what most people do who find Never Too Old to Lift, and for those who join the course Stronger for Life, they tend to start from home. They like the things we talked about there of not having to worry about other people looking at them whilst they're trying to learn everything. And if everything is new to you, from even just turning up twice a week or 3 times a week to do something, the exercises that you're trying to pick, trying to work out how many repetitions and sets to do, if you've got some equipment, how do you even know what weight to use? And when everything is new, it all feels so unfamiliar and so unnatural that you don't really want to see or other people to see you in that kind of vulnerable state. And for a lot of time at home is a great way to start to explore that and the safety of your own home at the pace you want to do it in. And that is where most people start if they come through the course, or even if they get the free ebook that I've got, which guides you through creating your own workout program and then starting a 12-week program. So if you're interested in that, it's nevertooldtolift.com/ebook. But for majority of people, they do start there and they get to grips with the program they've created with from themselves, and they start to develop the confidence in doing the exercise. And that is the start and step one of creating a strength training program. So can I start strength training from home? Yes, you can, because you're starting by getting used to the exercises. Now, you'll have heard me talk before about what it takes to actually build muscle strength. Now, in order to build muscle strength, you do have to push your muscles close to the point of fatigue or muscular fatigue, where you couldn't do another repetition if you tried. You just, muscles wouldn't have much left. So if you got to the end of, say, 15 repetitions, you might have 1 or 2 left in the tank. But if you had any much more than that, unfortunately, you're not necessarily going to get any stronger. Now, I'm not going to cover that too much because I've done a whole episode on that. It's kind of a strength training 101, going through all the basics. It's about 20 to 25 minutes, and that's episode 2. So I'll put that link in the show notes or the description below. But if you've not listened to that yet, I really recommend you go and listen to that. Bearing in mind that we're going to start to need to push towards muscular fatigue, and if at body weight you're not getting there, then that's where we're going to start to need to think about some equipment. Now, the good news is you don't have to go out and buy anything straight away. You can use things around the house that have some weight to them. So in lockdown, I tended to use my backpack, rucksack, with bottles of screen wash in them. So a bottle of screen wash is 5 litres. It's actually got a nice little handle, so you don't necessarily have to have it in a bag. You can hold it with the handle, and you can have one in each hand. And so 5 litres of water is 5 kilograms of weight. So straight away, if you've got 2 of those, you've got 10 kilograms straight away. But even if you don't have the bottles of screen wash, you can put other bottles of water in a bag, and if you know the volume of the water, you know the weight that you're using. And then say you were doing a squat, so you're getting up and down from a chair, you could put the backpack on your back, and you've now got some additional weight to challenge you a little bit more. Again, if you've got the handle with the bottle, you can start to do something maybe like a bent over row where you're leant over and you're pulling that up towards you. You can hold the bottles and do maybe a shoulder press. There's so many different options that you could do with just a bag and some bottles of water. There's going to come a point where the bottles of water are just a bit clunky and cumbersome and hard to use, and you feel ready for a bit more of a challenge. And the good news is that things like Amazon and eBay and shops like Argos or Decathlon, they've made it very inexpensive to buy some weights or gym based equipment. And you could get started very cheaply with a set of resistance bands, which you could get for somewhere between £10 and £15 for a little set of 3 resistance band that come with something you can put in a door that anchors it to the door, so you've got an attachment point, so you can do some of the pull based exercises now. You could get a set of adjustable dumbbells that go up to 20 kilograms for somewhere normally between £35 to £50. There's normally a deal on Amazon somewhere there. And then you might want a gym mat as well, which you might get for somewhere between £10 and £15. And so for what might cost a couple of months membership at a gym, maybe 3 months membership, you've got enough kit there that could last you for kind of a 6-month period of progressions of exercises. And again, they store away very neatly. They don't take up a huge amount of space. And that is a great option. And that is what most of the people that join my course tend to do. Now, if you are interested in some of those bits of equipment, I've got a link that I'll put in the show notes in the description below that takes you to the equipment that I tend to recommend on Amazon, and I try and update that regularly, so you'll be able to see what equipment that is there that is relatively inexpensive that you can get started with. But like I said, in terms, again, coming back to the question, can I start strength training at home? Initially, we said yes, because the starting point is just getting confident with the exercises, even if you're not using weight. But now we've gone to that next step of, well, actually, we've got some weight it's challenging us enough to build some muscle strength. So yes, we can start strength training from home. Then it comes to a point where you've maximized the equipment you're using and you're now not really pushing yourself close enough to muscular fatigue to build muscle strength. And this is where people tend to go one of two ways, is because you're going to need something more in terms of resistance and weight to provide more of a challenge. So a lot of people then will either go into the gym setting, and they've then got all that equipment I talked about earlier that is available for them to choose from, or they're going to have to spend a bit more money at home in order to challenge themselves further. So I thought I'd kind of share 2 stories of 2 of the members of my course, Stronger for Life. So first we've got Mandy. So Mandy joined and she never thought she was going back to the gym. She thought that those days were well behind her and she had no intention of doing it. She just wanted to do this all from home. But when she got to that point I talked about, she actually felt confident with everything she's doing, confident using weights, confidence pushing to muscular fatigue. And all of the things that are unfamiliar to her at the start were now very familiar and didn't faze her. So now she just had one element left of that gym setting, which was the environment around her. She didn't have to worry about everything else. All she had to do was take what she was already doing and transition into this new environment. And to start with, she didn't add any weight. She just picked the same kind of equipment that she was already using. And she just got used to the environment, what was around her, who was there. And she just did what she knew. And that was quite liberating for her because that wasn't daunting. She could quite happily do that. And then once she's been there a few weeks, she was able to then test some of the other equipment, adding a bit more weight. And actually, like I say, once she realised that people weren't judging her, she didn't feel intimidated anymore. The gym became a place that she loved going. And it even got to the point where she told me she was booking a holiday and she picked her hotel based on the fact that it had a gym available that she could use when she was on holiday. And that's coming from someone who a year earlier never thought she was going back in a gym. And now she's choosing her holidays based on what gyms are available or not. So that is one option. The other option is I had someone called Mike who was part of the course, and he through necessity at the start, did everything from home. So he found me during the lockdowns from COVID. So the gyms weren't open at this point. So he, having thought that he needed to do this in the gym, started from home, and he thought it was just going to be a little stopgap to get him to the point where he can get to the gym. And actually, he started to realize that he loved doing it at home so much that when he got to the point where he was ready to progress, it actually conveniently tied in with his 70th birthday. And his family bought him a squat rack for the garage with an Olympic bar. And he then just has carried on making all the progressions he has. He got to the point where he was able to deadlift 100 kilograms and squat not much less than that. And again, this is all done from home. He didn't do a single gym session where he's in a gym. It was all in his home garage gym. And so that is another option. Again, these bits of equipment like squat racks and Olympic bars, they do cost more money. But if you then add up over the years how much money you're saving by not having a gym membership, then they can be very cost effective in the long run as well. And for all those other reasons of being convenient, and he lives in quite a remote area, so it would have been a lot of travel time to get to and from the gym. But yeah, there are two examples of different routes you take. Most people that come in tend to, let's say, all start at home. I'd say 90% of people start at home rather than the gym. And then it's probably about 70% of people then actually feel they've got the confidence to start stepping back into the gym, where the rest tend to then think, I'll buy a bit more expensive equipment and sort of really kind of bulk out my home gym and make that a little bit more established. Hopefully that's clarified for you and reassured you that you don't have to join the gym if you don't want to at the moment. It's not a necessity to get started with strength training. You can do this all from home. And I say, if you are thinking about getting started, you just don't know what the best options are for exercises, for equipment, etc., then do take a look at that free ebook that I mentioned. So nevertooldtolift.com/ebook, and that will help guide you there. Or if you're more of a video person, I do have a free masterclass that guides you through a lot of the same theory and exercise options. And you can find that by going to nevertooldtolift.com/masterclass. And all those links will be in the description below. Next week, we have another member of Stronger for Life, Steve, who talks us through his experience with starting strength training in his first sort of 3 or 4 months, and what benefits he's noticed, some of the barriers that he found to begin with, and how he overcame them. It's a really inspiring episode, and one that I don't think you'll want to miss. So make sure that you tune in next week for that. But for now, I will see you in the next episode.